from 9 to 10. Okay? At 10 o'clock, we will, maybe 10:15, if we need to finish it, maybe a little 10, another 15, 20 minutes if possible. Then we will just conclude with a Guru Dakshina and sort of like a graduation from the retreat. And so shouldn't take that long, maybe 10:30 or so. Usually we will have Swamiji here to receive your Guru Dakshina, but since he's gone for a retreat in somewhere, then I will just substitute for him and then receive your thanks. And then we're free. So I think we need to figure out exactly what time we should leave for the airport. But I've estimated at noon. Perhaps, I think in the past it could have been a little bit later, 12:30, I don't know. Huh? What time is the flight? Oh, it's at 4:40. We have more time then. We have a little bit more time. Okay. Anyway, we'll discuss that. In any case, there will not be a second class. And so that will give you a chance to pack up and just say goodbyes to people and so on. And then I think that Taraben is making an earlier lunch for us, so we can have an earlier lunch and then go on. So that's the plan for the next 5 days, next 3 days. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I think we are pretty much done with verse number 4. Vedanta Vijnana Sunishchitartha Sannyasa Yogat Yataya Shuddha Sattva Aha Te Brahma Loke Tusarpara Antakale Paramritat Parimuchanti Sarve. I mean, we've pretty much done that. But I was just looking at it. This is why I think I'm really glad this is a very well written book, because it has details about the entire structure of the teaching, the very details of the teaching. Very well done. So what I'm saying that I was just looking at it. So he has talked about the 2 stages of sannyasa and 2 stages of moksha. Okay? 2 stages of, I think that's something I didn't quite give you the detail, but let me finish it. It won't take much long. So we've talked about the 2 kinds of moksha, 2 stages of the moksha. You recall what it is, right? So one is with the body as a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means this is interesting, the Sanskrit Jivan Mukta means it is a present participle. Present participle means while, so the English word will be while. Like, supposing you say, while doing this, I am listening to you. While I am writing, I am listening to you. So that's what is called a present participle. So Jivan means while living, you are muktaha. You are free even while you are alive. So this is the first stage of the mukti. And then, if you want to sort of have a complete mukti, because people will say, how can he be completely free? He's still with the body bothers. We've gone through all that discussion already with Raman Maharshi's cancer and all that. So, okay, if you are really a purist, you can say fine, then when the body falls, it is Videha Mukti. So there are two kinds of mukti, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. Now, we didn't talk about the two kinds of sannyasa. So this is what Swamiji has pointed this out on page 82. Okay, so 82 talks about the two types of sannyasa. One is what is called Vividisha sannyasa. Vividisha is a Sanskrit word which means Veditum Ichha. It's a very beautiful word. Vividisha sannyasa. If you want to impress some students or some friends about the technicalities of these things, you can just say, do you know about Vividisha sannyasa? Let me tell you. First of all, you ask the question and they'll say, no, I have no idea. So they'll say, okay, now let me tell you. So, generally speaking, remember I make that statement that most of these sannyasis that you see are not Brahmagyanis yet. It's not that easy to do. To become a Brahmagyani is a great thing. And we have probably, I don't know, especially if you go to Rishikesh and Haridwar and so on, you see sannyasis by the thousands on the street. Not all of them are Brahmagyanis. What they are Vividisha sannyasi. Veditum Ichha. Veditum Ichha means they have a desire to know. Just like you and I have a desire to know. But their desire is more focused. We do, in 12 hours a number of things in our life, and 1 hour or so we do Vedanta. I was just spending a half hour with my old, younger colleague, Swami Gyanananda. Swami Gyanananda, you must see him. He's the shorter of the Swamis sitting there with Swami Viditatmananda. You may have met him. So he's the overall in charge of this. He's Shuddhatmaji's boss. So Puja Swamiji, he's a great devotee of Puja Swamiji. And Puja Swamiji has made him the in charge of this ashram. So he's the big boss. And but when Pami and I were students at Piercy, he was he's about 10 years younger than me. And his name was Ashok Chabla. And so we became great friends. And now he has taken sannyasa and he's now staying here. This is what I was just catching up with him for half hour before this. So the reason I say that is because he is also a Veditum, he's also a Vividisha sannyasi, and we were also mumukshu. We both have desire to know. But he has an advantage. He reads and meditates most of the day. I read and meditate for 2 hours a day. That's about all that I can afford. And so he's really well on his way to focus. So this is the first stage of sannyasa, which is called Vividisha sannyasa. The second stage of the sannyasa is what is called Vidvat sannyasa. Vidvat, that's the Sanskrit word is used. Vidvat means one who knows. Means he's a Jivan Mukta. One who knows very clearly while you are living, he becomes a Jivan Mukta. Means while you are living, the whole thing looks very, very light on him, light to him. And it doesn't really bother. World doesn't bother. You're just completely separate from the whole thing. You are what you are, And if the world is there, fine. If it is not there, fine. He is able to see. And in fact, this is the first stage of the understanding. See, I think that you already have a good idea of that, but we will cover this. So the first, you can almost say there are 3 stages of understanding. 3 stages. First stage is that you do not separate the Atma for the Anatma. You have not done that viveka. The actor and the role are all mixed up together. This is the first stage, which is the normal stage, which is what 99% of the people live in their life. This is what it is. And a few people who feel somewhat uncomfortable with the whole situation begin to do some analysis, some inquiry. When they do, they are told, you are right. Your feeling uncomfortable has some basis. So what you need to do is to do viveka between the actor and the role. See the clarity of it. You are what you are, I am. But then when you say, I am a thinker, I am a talker, then you play a role. And so the person is the one who plays a role, but the person doesn't change. There's no attributes to the Atma. I am. If you want to call it that as an attribute, you could, but we don't say that. See, attribute means what? Attribute means something added on. Like when you say red rose, the redness is an attribute of the rose. It could be a yellow rose, but it stays as a rose. So similarly, the Atma is attributeless. It's the person. And this Atma, so this is one interesting thing. When you initially think of the Atma, you only think in terms of your entire structure. Because you don't feel anything separate from it. And the reason you don't feel separate from it is because you don't yet understand that you are the basis of the whole world. As we will study in much more detail in the Mandukya Karika. And we are already starting to look into that. See, this is all, we are going to, in the next 3 or 4 classes, I'm going to start to focus on that. So here's what happens. You look at this. I'll give you a first hint of this process. Anyway, before I give you the first hint of the process, let me finish the 3 stages that I was talking about. Let's finish that. So the first stage is everything is mixed up together. The Atma and the Anatma are all one ball of wax. Whatever happens to your body, mind, etc., happens to you. You don't see any distinction. What do you mean? The second stage is you start to see a distinction. That I am the observer of the world, and the world is different from me. I am the observer. So now we have a second stage where a single thing has been divided into 2, right? Observer and observed are 2 separate things. So you've now accomplished a second stage, and it has a lot of value because just as Swami Viditatmananda was pointing out, and I was talking about the experience of this guy who was saying, Swamiji, I don't get angry. So then, after Swamiji has pointed out that the seed of anger is still there, he now points out to the same person to reassure him that you are the observer of anger. You cannot say I am angry until you are different from anger. This is the second stage. First stage is if you become angry, you conclude I am angry. This is the first stage. Second stage is that you may still get an anger, but now you are able to separate yourself by saying I am the observer of my anger. This is the second stage. Then there is a final stage. And the final stage is anger and I are not two things. Anger is my apparent attribute. This is what is called Advaita Vedanta. Advaya, we have already seen that. Advaita means one without a second. There is nothing else except me, and the whole world is me. Okay, so in the Mandukya Upaniṣad, in the way we talked about this, what Swami Akhandananda ji has taken this approach is, I'm just introducing a new term here and I'll try to explain it so that you have some idea about it. This is what he's taken approach of saying Eka Jiva Vada. So this Eka Jiva Vada is an interesting thing. What happens is that there are two approaches to reaching the third stage. Third stage being that the whole world is nothing but my own projection, like it is in a dream. The dream is an example of the whole dream is nothing but yourself. You should always think in terms of your own experience. Right? This is the thing that in teaching, there are three aspects used. One is Shruti, one is Yukti, and the third one is Anubhava. These are the three. The Shruti means what someone is telling you authoritatively. Yukti means what the person is saying seems to make sense. That's Yukti. That means you have to do some analysis of it. Anubhava means this is actually my experience. So in this example of the 10th man story, Dashamoham, called Dashamoham, Dashamaha Ahamasmi is the 10th man example. In that example, the wise person who says, you are crying about a non-problem, is akin to having Shruti. Shruti is the one who is giving you this assurance very confidently. This is called Shruti. Then, you remember in the example I told that what this guy, so the other people have started to dry their tears already, but they haven't found it. So he says, now can you prove it to us? So he says, okay, I'll prove it to you, but now do one thing for you. You're all sitting around at different places and so on. No, I don't want that. See this line? You line yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All of them. We didn't say 10 at that time. He said you line up all of them. So this is called Yukti. Why it is called Yukti? Because it has to be made very clear to them systematically. You cannot say, you're the one, you're number 2, you're number 3, and let's see, did we forget? Yeah, you're number 4. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work because your mind is saying, I think he may forgot me. You can't do that. So you have to do it very systematically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is called yukti. Anubhava is saying you are the 10th man. You forgot yourself. This is called Anubhava. So, in this methodology of converting a person who was totally a samsari into a person who is totally a wise, a very epitome of wisdom, there are two methods of doing it, which is used in Vedanta completely. Two methods. One of them is that you look at the characteristics of a jiva. Jiva means a human being, a person, a personality. Not personality, a person, just a person, just a living person. And you talk about what it consists of, that it is there is this observer, observed, atma, anatma, unchanging, changing. All of this analysis you do, all pertaining to a jiva. Right? All pertaining to the jiva. Here you have not even introduced the concept of Ishvara. There's nothing to do with it. It's all about an analysis of a person. Then, after that is pretty much complete, you go to the description of, because there's something is left, because there is a feeling, okay, I see this, but then who is the designer of this? Who did it? Because there are things that you and I are not in control of, most of them. Things happen, and how do they happen? See, this is the very interesting thing, that if we had complete control over things, we will never be unhappy. Never be unhappy. Because nobody wants to be unhappy. Because our nature is happiness. But what happens is, I find unhappiness. So that means I'm not in complete control. Some things are happening that are out of my control that make me unhappy. So that analysis of the jiva, even though done fairly completely, still leaves out a factor that is responsible for making things happen that I don't like. Who is that person? So then a second analysis is started in Vedanta, which is what is called Tatpadavachya Mimamsa. The first one was the Tvampadavachya Mimamsa, the meaning of the word Tvam, you, which is jiva, and then the other one is Tatpadavachya Mimamsa, the Mimamsa of Ishvara, who is the Jagat Karta, Jagat Bharta. He is the one, so in the form of Vishnu and Shiva and Brahmaji and all of those kinds of things, Maya Shakti, cosmos, all those kinds of things. So that is done separately. That is done separately. Then, so these are the two elements of the identity, right? Tattvamasi. So in the Mahavakya Tattvamasi, one is Tvam, one is Tat, and the third one is the identity. So now we have done an analysis of the individual, we have finished the analysis of the total cosmos, and then we show, by the way, the two are the same. They are not different. So this is what is called not the direct meaning, but the implied meaning. Implied meaning that the two are the same. So this is one methodology that is used. The second methodology which is being used in our course in Mandukya Karika, is what is called Ekajivavada. In the Ekajivavada, the two elements you and that are taken up together from the very beginning. You don't wait for the end to equate the two. You do it from the very beginning itself, and you prove that there is only a single jiva. There's not two separate jivas. There's not tvam and tam, tat, etc. This is the one that is used. So for example, we have started to teach that in that course, but we haven't quite finished it. It goes like this. Okay? And I'll give you an example of this Eka Jiva Vada, how it goes. You see, in our life, we have a view. Okay? And the view is, I am seeing a few things. I'm seeing a few things. I'm a seer of a few things. The room, people, limited. My vision is very limited. My vision is very limited. And so here, when I say I see things, I see through the upadhi. I see through my eyes, my mind. My mind also confirms the fact that yes, you are seeing just this room. I can't see anything other than this room. That's all I'm seeing, and so on. So this is one thing. In the larger analysis, it is shown from the very beginning that your conclusion that you are only seeing this is not correct. In fact, you are seeing the entire cosmos in front of you. You're seeing the entire cosmos. How am I seeing the entire cosmos? Because I am the observer of everything. My reality is as an observer, and that is the reality of my vision. Reality means what? As Swami Viditatmananda was also talking about last night. We're answering the question about the expanding universe, how many galaxies there are, and so on. The same thing that I'm pointing out. Doesn't matter how many galaxies there are. I am the observer of anything that happens. No matter how many galaxies there are, I am still an observer. That doesn't change. It's not as though the number of galaxies increases and it diminishes me in any manner. No. Changes in the universe, I see the changes in the universe. I see and the only reason that I'm only seeing this room is because there are walls enclosing this room. And as soon as the walls fall down, my observership remains the same. So my observership exactly is not affected by anything that I see. This is the vision that I have to take, which is a factual vision. In the entire if I am in dream, I am only seeing through the eyes of the dream character. And that is a falsity. I am in fact seeing the entire dream. The fact of the matter is that during the dream experience, I'm seeing the entire dream, not just as a dream character. I'm seeing even when I'm dreaming, I'm seeing the entire dream, all the elements of the dream. So similarly, even in the waking state, if I shift my focus, my point of view from the standpoint of the observer, I'm observing the whole thing. No matter what happens, whatever changes happen, doesn't change the observership. This I have to see. And I have, because of my habits, I say, well, really, how can that be? Just keep thinking, just keep practicing, just look at it. And you at one time you will see that I am really the observer of the whole thing. And so in that sense, I am very much like Ishvara. Very much like Ishvara. So this is what is identity between the jiva and the view of the Ishvara is pointed out from the very beginning. You don't have to wait for it. This is what is called Ekajivavada. So the other one is not wrong, but it just delays my knowledge. But in the Ekajivavada, which is what Gaudapada's Karika is taking, and Swami Akhandananda and others are espousing very clearly, this identity between the Jiva and the Ishvara is done at a very early age. You see, so here's the thing, this is what I will have to repeat it many times. Both the Jiva and Ishvara have the same characteristics. Same characters. 99.9% is the same. What are the two characteristics? Just think about this. Two characteristics are that you cannot observe any changes unless you are unchanging yourself. This is what Swami Viditatmananda was focusing on the first satsang. This is a very simple thing. Please grasp this. You cannot conclude there is anything changing unless you are, in technical terms, this is called in the adhisthana of the change, the basis of the change. You cannot conclude. You cannot even think. You cannot make any statement. You cannot transact. There is no life unless you can see very clearly that there are changes going on. And who can say this? If the observer is also changing. See, this is where we point out the fallacies of Buddhism. So if you start to really get into the technical analysis of alternate schools of thought and so on, you will find this. Because the Buddhists feel that the Atma also is flickering, called Shanika Vijnanavada or Shunya Vijnanavada. So there's like 3 or 4 different versions of Buddhism. Two main ones are Kshanika Vidyan, Kshanika Vigyan, and Shunya Vigyan. In the Shunya Vigyan, is so, that means at the end nothing left. Nothing left means what? I am a living person. How can I be nothing? Who says I am nothing? The person who says I am nothing is the person who is there. So the Shunyavadi also is dismissed. But let's look at the Kshanikavada. Kshanikavada says that the observer is also changing. The observer cannot change because otherwise you will never conclude there is change. So observer number one says this is one state, and then the observer itself has changed into observer number two. The two have to be compared. There's no way to compare. It's exactly like, I will just point this out. Supposing you were a different person yesterday than you are today. Supposing that. This is exactly what Kshanikavada means. They say it is on a very quick change. But any change, whether it is quick or not quick, unless it is the same observer, you cannot do anything. Like you were supposing you were a different person yesterday. Next morning you wake up, you are a different person. Imagine what life would be. You are a brand new person. You don't know who your spouse is, your friends are, what your everything. Brand new person. You'd have no way of transferring memory. You are a brand new person. So this is a very beautiful way of taking up this point by Vedanta, which is called Vivartavada. Vivartavada means there is changes, but there are no changes. Just like gold becoming ornaments, there is an apparent change, but there is no real change. If the ring is melted to become a garland or a har, a necklace rather, not a garland, but a necklace, yes, the ring has gone, the necklace has come, but the gold remains the same. This is called Vivartavada. So really speaking, Jiva and Ishvara are identical. How? Because both of them are the observer of change. And you cannot have two separate observers of the change. The observer itself is unlimited. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. It's only one Jiva. You can call it Jiva, you can call it Ishvara, but there is only one observer. And that means, this is a very important thing to grasp, that really speaking, there cannot be a conclusion of change unless there is a changeless entity, which is you. Don't say, I will be. You are. You cannot even conduct your life unless you are unchanging. Just imagine this. So there is one common element. Okay? The second common element is, how do you know? So the first common element has to do with Sat. I am. I am means I am unchanging. I have no attributes. All the attributes are changes like ornaments on me. They're really, the whole world is, think about it. The whole world is a very sophisticated ornament on you. Very sophisticated ornament. So much going on. but on the same substratum. It's called Adhisthana. You are the Adhisthana of the entire world. And this is similar to what Ishvara is. It's the same Adhisthana. It's not any different. So this is number one. Number two, who lights it up? The observer is the one who is the light that falls on the world. You cannot see the world unless you have a light. You cannot conclude there is world. You cannot conclude anything unless there is light. And there are different kinds of lights. There is the sunlight. This is why the sunlight is so important. Because you cannot do anything without light. In fact, all of the things that you see, chairs, carpet, walls, are nothing but the modifications of light. The light remains constant, but the objects on which it falls change. So, this is one of those exercises. Remember, we were saying that we are bad accountants. We don't completely account for all the ingredients, all the elements of the assets. This is exactly like that. So if I were to ask you, what is this? Please describe everything about this. So you'll say it's a clay. And clay with a form. Anything else? You'll say, no. Maybe your hand holding it? Is that what you mean? I said, no, I just want the object that I'm holding. Okay. That's it. Sure? Anything missed? Do I get an A? At most you get a C+. Where do I miss? The light. The light. You can say, because if it is dark, it will be completely, you cannot even say this is a pot. So the light is very important. So the question is, what kind of light? So this is there's a very famous, this is called Jyotis. There is a section called Jyoti something, I forget the name, it's Brihadaranya. That's where I don't remember all these kinds of things, but I remember the concepts. So there is a question. What is the light that you see under? And so it says, is it the sunlight? No, there is no sunlight, it is the night time. So there is light from the moon. Okay, supposing there is a new moon. Where is the light coming from? There are some lights coming from the various stars. No, supposing it's a completely cloudy night, there is no light coming. Where is it coming from? It's the light of the Atma. This is interesting that Swami Akhandananda pointed this out. He said, supposing you are blind, you are congenitally blind, you were born blind, you never see anything, you never saw anything. Imagine the status of this. really thousands of people who are born blind. And you may have a sense of touch, and possibly that even the touch may not be there. I don't remember all the attributes of Helen Keller. So the Helen Keller was blind, and she was also didn't have a lot of other faculties, but she was still a person. You can even imagine that if you and I were to be born blind, we would still be aware that I am someone. And possibly you could even touch your body and say, okay, this is a long limb here, and I have two limbs, and I have some ability to clutch. So like that you can see. But no matter what states you are in, you are aware. You are aware. Awareness is the light. And that light is very essential to conclude that there is a world. Right? So that light is also a common element between Jiva and Ishvara. Ishvara has the same Atma. And it says there is a whole cosmos. And a cosmos which is nothing but a projection, not a real one. It's like a play, Leela. But we take a different conclusion. But we have the same light. Same light. We are the same Adhisthana and the same light. So it is concluded from the very beginning by the Ekajivavada that essentially the two are the same. So you don't wait for the asi to happen in the end. You do it from the very beginning itself. This is advanced Vedanta, which Sri Gaudapadacharya ji talks about. Anyway, we spent a fair amount of time. I want to go back to this. So, there are two kinds of sannyasa also, Vividisha sannyasa and Vidvat sannyasa. So, Vidvat sannyasa means that it is a knowledgeable sannyasi. Okay, so in the next 5 minutes, this is I'm using the same methodology as Lord Krishna uses in Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, what he does is he writes the whole chapter, and then the last couple of verses is the introduction to the next chapter. This is what I'm like Shri Krishna. Just give me a lot of respect. So here, let's at least see the 5th verse. Let's at least pronounce it, and then we will, in the few minutes left, I will at least explain the word meanings, and then we will see the real meanings tomorrow morning. Number 5, which is on page 88, or all of them are on page 211, 212. Vivikta deshe cha sukha asanasthaha. Vivikta deshe cha sukha asanasthaha. Shuchi samagriva shirashariraha. Shuchi samagriva shirashariraha. Atyashramastha sakalendriyani. Atyashramastha sakalendriyani. Nirudhya bhaktya swagurum pranamya. Nirudhya bhaktya swagurum pramanya. So, in a way, this is kind of like the elements of doing Nididhyasanam. I only repeated it once because this is not a very important verse in the way the unfoldment of the truth comes in. This is just a method that he's talking about. And he says, this is how you do contemplation. You sit, so let's read the whole thing. One should be sitting in a secluded place, in a comfortable posture, with the neck, head and body in alignment, with a clean mind, in the attitude of renunciation, having withdrawn all the senses, having bowed with devotion to one's teacher. So essentially this is what we went through in our introduction for preparation for Nididhyasana. This is what needs to be done. You have to do that, except for the Nirudhya Bhaktya Swagarum Pranamya. So that's the only new thing that we talked about. Otherwise, this is what we all already said. So there is nothing very profound about this. This is just a method of doing contemplation. So let's see if Swamiji had here something that I need to... I guess the only thing I can add to this myself is that this suggestion or even a command that you sit with the neck, head and the body straight is okay in the beginning. Okay? But in last year's retreat, we took a book by Adi Shankara which talks about ways of doing Nididhyasana. We went through this in the last retreat a year ago. And there is a section on doing Nididhyasana in the text that we had taken. And there it had said, do Nididhyasanam at any time in any posture. Sitting like this and so on is a good thing in the beginning, but in the end, not really necessary. This is just a preliminary thing. And if I look at my own self, when I do contemplation in the morning, I find myself just in different postures. I would just exactly what I'm doing now. I'll rest my arm and my hands on my face, and my face on one side. And now I'm used to doing contemplation in such a way that I don't have to sit straight. In the very beautiful book called Drikdrishya Viveka, we studied this. In the middle of that, there is a saying, Yatra yatra mano yati tatra tatra samadhayaha. It's called Sahaja Samadhi. So in the initial stages, the Samadhi has to be very structured. You have to do like this and sit straight, etc. But then as you progress, no matter where your mind is, it is absorbed in yourself. So that takes a little bit more progress, but in the meantime, even in a contrived samadhi, so the morning meditation is a contrived samadhi. It's not a natural samadhi. You have to shut off all the lights, be quiet and say Om, etc., etc. Contrived. But even in the contrived samadhi, according to Adi Shankara, that the Nididhyasanam, the second stage of Nididhyasanam is wherever you are. You see, this is an interesting thing because in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, what you need to do has very strict rules. Okay? Like, what time you have to do puja, This, for example, the pujas that is done here, it is laid down very strictly. 3 times, so sandhya, 3 sandhyas have to be done. The morning and evening. The morning to day, midday, evening, night, all of that has to be done. But in terms of nididhyasanam, which is jnana yoga, there is no such vidhi. In fact, the only vidhi is do it as often in whatever state you are in. And Bhagavad Gita also points this out. Shranvan in the 3rd chapter, sleep, you're lying down, you're sitting up. That is the state. I haven't reached that state yet, but I have reached the state where I am not really, my mind becomes quiet and contemplative in whatever state I am. Sometimes I'm reading a book, so I just close it halfway and I go into contemplation. So this is an advice to a novice. This is not an expert advice. It's just my opinion. All right, let us see. So yeah, I think that this verse doesn't need any more commentary. And when we meet next, we will do number 6. Hrit pundarikam virajam shushvatshuddham. Okay, so with that I'll close the class today. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Quick announcement, those of us going to the temple, please collect at the dining area parking lot, and we'll leave from there in maybe 5 minutes.